Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar on how you can secure your network from ransomware attacks. My name is Tom with Faronics, and we at Faronics focus on helping people protect their networks and their devices. So today we're going to dive into what ransomware is, why it's a very serious threat, and most importantly, what you can do to protect your network from these attacks. So starting off with what ransomware actually is and why it's such a big deal. So first off, ransomware is a type of malicious software or malware that's specifically designed to do one thing: hold your data hostage. The way it works is quite straightforward, but incredibly damaging. Once ransomware gets into your system, it encrypts your files. So that means it locks them up using complex algorithms that are virtually impossible to crack without a special decryption key. After the files are encrypted, you or whoever runs your network are going to get a message on your screen. Might be something simple like, oops, your files have been encrypted, or something more threatening, demanding a ransom to be paid, often in cryptocurrency, often Bitcoin, to get the decryption key. So even if you do pay the ransom, there's no guarantee you'll get your data back. Cyber criminals aren't really known for their customer services. Some victims pay and never hear back. Others might get their data restored, but they later find that the ransomware has been left with other malware to reinfect their system later. So paying the ransom is a risky move, and that's putting it mildly. So you might be thinking, how do they even get into my system in the first place? Well, ransomware can find its way into your network through a variety of channels. The most common way is through phishing emails. These are emails that look legitimate, regularly actually appear to come from someone you know, but they can contain malicious links or attachments. So if someone on your network clicks on one of those links or downloads an attachment, that's all it takes for the ransomware to get in. But it doesn't stop there. Ransomware can also spread through infected websites, malicious ads, or by exploiting vulnerabilities in your software. So for example, if your operating system's not up to date or your applications aren't up to date, that could leave you with weaknesses that hackers can exploit to get into your network. And once they're in, they can deploy the ransomware and start locking up your files. Once the ransomware has infiltrated your network, it can move laterally. So it can very quickly spread from one infected device to others within the same network. That's why a single infection can turn into a massive problem very quickly. A single employee clicking on a bad link can potentially lead to your whole organization being held hostage. And then the impact of a ransomware attack can be devastating. Imagine not being able to access critical files or systems for days or even weeks. Everything grinds to a halt, and if the ransom's paid, that's money straight out of your pocket or out of the company's pocket. The costs don't end there either. Time and resources needed to restore your systems and your data, not to mention the potential loss of customer trust, can be enormous. So to summarize, ransomware is a type of malware that encrypts your data and demands a ransom for its release. It's sneaky, it spreads quickly, and it can bring your business to a standstill. So understanding what ransomware is and how it operates is the first step in protecting yourself against it. You might be wondering, is this something really I need to worry about? The answer is yes. Ransomware attacks are increasing in frequency, and they don't just target big corporations. Small and medium businesses, schools, hospitals, you name it, everyone's at risk. And the cost of a ransomware attack can include not only the cost of the ransomware itself, but also the lost productivity, the damage to your reputation, and the time and money it takes to recover. Ransomware has been in the news a lot since COVID opened up new vulnerabilities. There's lots of big and small companies being affected, and there's no moral compass at all on who might be affected. For example, Ireland's entire health service was significantly disrupted. Ransomware makes the news very often when a big name falls victim, but it's happening all the time when lesser known businesses fall victim and don't make the news. So it's not a threat that can be ignored. It's happening all the time. So imagine you go to work one morning and you try to open a file or log into your system, and instead you see a message demanding payment to get your data back. Scary, right? That's ransomware in a nutshell. These threats are all around every day. It's really important to train your staff on how to recognize those risks and follow best practice to minimize them. But you're still relying on humans, and humans make mistakes. So that's not a very safe place to be. So just a few statistics on ransomware. 22% of organizations have been attacked in the last 12 months, and 43% of those attacks are aimed at small businesses, but only 14% of small businesses are prepared. So they're then often caught in a reactive firefighting mode rather than taking preventative measures, struggling to maintain that layered defense because of limited resources. So that makes them an attractive target for ransomware. Small businesses face the same security risks as large businesses, but with far fewer resources to address them. And the average ransomware payment of $812,000 in 2023 can put a small business out of business. But obviously, we're not talking about the actual cost of the ransom here. We're also talking about the loss of reputation and damage to public profile, the damage to morale, and the cost of time spent by your IT team recovering from the attack. Most common method of entry is a Windows executable file. So we can move on in a little while to talking about how to prevent an executable file from damaging you. So there's a couple of strategies here that businesses adopt, bearing in mind that context I've set there. Often businesses hope nothing bad happens, but a much better strategy is to plan for the worst. It really shouldn't take you a lot of time and money, but it can stop you getting completely wiped out. It's not an exaggeration to say that it can stop your business from failing. But unfortunately, the second strategy is what a lot of people do, especially in smaller organizations. If you imagine your business like an onion, ransomware attackers really want to get to the center of that onion. That's where all this sensitive and valuable business information is stored. And the best way of protecting yourself against ransomware is to pile up as many layers as possible between you and the center of that onion. This is what we mean by layered security. If the attacker manages to get through one layer of security, then there's another layer of security in the way. And if they get through that second layer, then there's another layer of security between them and the center of the onion. So you want layers that neutralize those common ransomware threats as much as possible to improve your overall resilience. As IT teams, we've got a responsibility to strengthen our defenses, to create multiple layers of protection that thwart ransomware attacks. So if we implement comprehensive security measures, we can mitigate the risk of ransomware. So at Faronics, we have been mitigating the risk of ransomware for a very long time. We've been around since 1996. We have customers in more than 150 countries. We've sold more than 12 million licenses, and we remove a big headache for our customers. Security is something that our customers report to us that they don't worry about. So I'm going to show you how that happens with a product called Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze that IT managers use to look after their devices. So starting with antivirus. So this is the first layer of the onion. So on this screen, I can see all my computers, and I can easily just select a computer and I can scan that computer. Fix now. I can also enable firewall, enable active protection. I can review my quarantined files. So just that simple step of an antivirus scan is going to scan the device for possible security vulnerabilities in the operating system itself or in the software installed on the device. So if you identify those, then that's a simple step that you can take to prevent infection. Then we also have the second layer of protection, which is anti-executable, which is an advanced whitelisting tool, which allows you to add and remove files from a blocked list. So this is blocking the most common method of entry for ransomware, which is a Windows executable file. And you have this tab here, Enable Ransomware Prevention, and that is going to block known ransomware. And then you can report on your anti-executable. You can run an activity report. You can see what blocked files are getting, all the additions and removals to the control list, and you can see blocked programs, computers with violations, and additions to the local control list and the central control list. So anti-executable, really simple to set up, really easy to use, and it's going to block executable files from reaching you. Thirdly, we have software updates. So in your policy in Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze, there's a whole long list of pre-packaged software. You just have to tick the software that you want to automatically keep up to date. And then you no longer need to spend the time on manually updating this software. Just tick the boxes and then schedule a maintenance periods. So say I might want to keep that software up to date between midnight and 1 o'clock on a Thursday morning. Then no longer do I need to spend the time on packaging the software updates. No longer do I need to spend the time on delivering them. And no longer do I need to spend the time on verifying them, because on the applications page, I can see exactly which versions of which software I'm running and where. So I know immediately whether a software update has delivered or not. And I can also use this applications page to install, uninstall, and update with one click. So software updates, software manufacturers are regularly patching security patches to tighten up their software from ransomware attackers as more threats become known. There's no reason to delay implementing those patches. You can just automate the whole thing so it happens overnight, so you don't worry about it anymore and don't spend any time on it. And the same applies to Windows updates. So with Windows updates, Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze can just perform your Windows updates. And here I've got critical and security updates set to always install, but I could have an approval stage, or I could just always install everything. And again, I can set that to happen overnight so that I don't need to spend any time on it. My devices will get woken up, the patch is delivered, and then the device is shut down again. And this is a really important measure to prevent ransomware, because Microsoft are patching all the time. They have whole teams of people. They're one of the biggest corporations in the world. It's really important to them that their operating systems are not vulnerable. And sometimes all their good work is undone when patches take months before they're live in an organization. So there's a window there that ransomware attackers can exploit if patches are not being delivered on a timely basis. But Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze allows you to shut that window firmly shut. So you are further limiting your ransomware risk by delivering Windows updates on a timely basis. Okay, the next layer of security is kiosk mode. So you can lock down your desktop. Here on my desktop, I can determine what it looks like and then what the header and the body elements are and the footer elements. So I can basically present this desktop to my users, and that's all they can do. They can't mess around with the devices anymore. I mean, this is commonly popular in public facing environments like environments or universities, but it has many use cases in the corporate world as well. For example, call centers. You're limiting the risk again. You're limiting how much damage your users can cause you, whether deliberately or accidentally. And here under the system tab, there's many more restrictions you can place on your users, like you can restrict folder manipulation, control panel, desktop Windows taskbar, drives and file extensions, start menu, network restrictions. So you can limit the available actions that a user can cause you, that a user can carry out on one of your devices. So that's a very powerful package of layers of security. But then there's one final layer beneath all those layers, which is called deep freeze. Deep freeze is basically like a very powerful reset button. If I select that device and I restart it, when it restarts in its original state. That means that any changes introduced by this user on this session, those changes disappear on restart. So if, for example, you have a ransomware attack, and a ransomware attack that makes it through antivirus, anti-executable, software updates, Windows updates, and kiosk mode, then, which is unlikely, or maybe if you don't have those layers at all, you restart your device with deep freeze and the ransomware is gone, completely cleaned out. Any malicious code disappears forever. And suppose you were worried you had an attack, you could just select all 27 computers and restart them all. And you can also schedule a restart. So in my policy here, under deep freeze, I can have a workstation task say that I want to shut down at the end of the day, and then when they start up at the beginning of the next day, they're going to be cleaned out. Or maybe I want to restart at the beginning of every day, or have an idle time task where if the device isn't used for 20 minutes, then I will restart it. But however you want to do it, whenever the device restarts, the ransomware is gone. And with Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze, you have these alerts. So it's another tool in your armory. When something bad happens, you can get notified immediately, either with a notification through the Cloud Console, or if you want an email, or through the administrator app. There's a deep freeze app. So like when a virus is detected, you want to know immediately. And then you have all these anti-executable alerts. So if you want to know if anti-executable protection is disabled, or if a specific file is causing violations on a certain number of computers. With deep freeze, if a computer is in a thawed state for more than a certain number of hours. And then with Windows updates, if you want to know immediately if you have a vulnerable security status, you want to get an email straight away, and you can tag your computers um, so that you can only get these alerts on certain tags. But Faronics Cloud Deep Freeze allows you to set up these measures to basically run everything in the background. But if you're of a nervous disposition and you want to know immediately when something bad happens, then these alerts really allow you to do that. So just going through those layers, summarizing what I just showed you there. Antivirus, the first layer of protection, stops the obvious bad stuff, viruses, worms and Trojans. But sometimes antivirus is running, but definition's not up to date. Small to mid-sized customers especially often lagging behind larger enterprises, so leaving themselves vulnerable. So get your antivirus in order, get it up to date. If the bad stuff makes it through the first layer, then they're up against the second layer, which is Faronics Anti-Executable. It's a really strong whitelisting tool, which only allows approved programs through and stops everything else, like targeted attacks or zero-day threats or mutated viruses. Then the third layer of protection is software updates. Having an application installed does not guarantee it will be kept up to date, so you can schedule your software updates to go live almost as soon as they're ready without disrupting any users. The fourth layer of protection is Windows updates. Typical corporate environment will contain a massive variation in builds and patches. It's often very messy, very complex, which is hard to manage and it's risky. And the average enterprise device is therefore 2 months behind on Windows patching. So you can just simplify all that, keep everything centralized and consistent, and close that window to ransomware attackers. Kiosk mode allows you to limit your risk by locking down your desktop. And then if any attack somehow makes it through those first 5 layers of security, they'll arrive at the final and most powerful layer, deep freeze. If you press that button, that powerful reset button, deep freeze will eliminate anything bad forever and restore your computer back to its original state in seconds. Deep freeze makes your devices extremely resilient. Whatever a hacker does, you can recover it. So put together, these layers are a strong ally that will allow you to win that war against malicious attacks. Once you're set up, you're going to spend less time fixing computers and more time on productive activities. So just a couple of words from some of our customers, many of whom have reported that they don't worry about ransomware anymore. As Greg says there, layered security is a no-brainer. You don't want to be relying on one line of defense. You need more than one layer. And Phil there giving us a very positive review about anti-executable and deep freeze. And Brian also talking about antivirus, how it works alongside deep freeze and saves him time and it's efficient and effective. So just a little bit more about Faronics. We're in our 28th year now, headquartered in Vancouver in Canada. Patented technology, deep freeze is unique. You won't find it anywhere else. And we have deployed more than 12 million licenses in more than 150 countries to more than 33,000 customers. So we have offices in Vancouver, in Canada, and in the USA, Bracknell in England, where I am, and Singapore, as well as a recently opened office in Dubai that hasn't quite made it onto that map. But we have trusted partners everywhere, all around the world. So if you're interested to know who your local partner is, then just let us know in the Q&A. We'll happily put you in touch with them. So we use the phrase one platform total control to describe what happens in your environment. It's one easy to use web-based console. When you're managing your workstations, you've got everything in one place from a security point of view, but also from lots of other points of view. And we offer a free trial. Please have a look at Faronics.com to find out a bit more about us. And you can sign up to a free trial from our website. So you can test it for yourself for 30 days. When testing it for yourself for 30 days for free, you just need to put the cloud agent on the devices, which is really straightforward. There are several really easy ways of doing that. And then, in fact, I will just show you. So the install cloud agent button here. There are 5 ways here of installing the cloud agent. So all of them are really straightforward, but once the cloud agent is on those devices, then they report in here to the cloud console. You can see them from here and manage them from here. Yeah, so once the cloud agent is there, you can manage them from the cloud console. And we'd be very happy to show you in more detail if you'd like us to discuss your particular requirements, talk about the particular needs of your network, your environment. We'd be very happy to tailor a demo to whatever it is you're particularly looking for, or we can spend some more time on, for example, if you're most interested in Windows updates, we can spend time looking at Windows updates, but happy to have a call and show you in more detail. Thanks very much for your time today. Hope you found the session useful and hope that you can stay safe from ransomware. Lovely to meet you all, and we'll catch you on the next webinar. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.